The one that you guys had.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Testing.
Right.
First year masters, but credit-wise, I'm
With
actually a
background.
second year's masters.
Yeah.
and I have
What was your
background.
certificate in?
Stabilization. I have a civilian background on that, so it was an easy one to go for.
Through State Department or
No, the darker side defense.
DOD?
Darker
The dark side. It's okay. We forget now. I'm just kidding. My whole family's military, so.
Yeah, I'm JR. I did the same thing you did. I went for in fact, my certificate was in world religions diplomacy. And I finished that last summer, and I somehow, for some reason, all my credits got added to my master's. So therefore, I only need to go to school for another 6 months, and I'll be done
Nice.
with my master's. So now I'm looking for an APT.
Ah.
Ladies help? So yeah, that's what I did. I'm not gonna do it. Are you guys gonna do it? Did you do a thesis or?
No, part of the APT process is really dependent on the group of people that comes together to form the APT. So we did, well, I did a lot of reflective journaling and a lot of like reflective practice for our APT. I don't recall a whole lot of writing. It really was much more focused on the practice. And I think that we found as a group, the meetings that we had every week were the most useful part. Because of the discussions and the ideas that we got to get into in that time was really the most useful. But it was the richest part, I think, of what we did.
Was it a long APT?
Full year.
3 or 6
Full year.
credits? 6 credits.
6 credits, yeah. So we'll be sharing with you some of the things that we learned at our APT class that we thought were most helpful.
All right.
So my name is Grace, and I'm in my final stage for my master's degree, working on my thesis.
Okay.
Hopefully finishing it off next semester.
Oh,
But I've done.
Thesis is?
I work on counter narratives in China to the stage narrative on harmony.
How many?
Yeah. So I look at internet stories or narrative material that's related to the stage discourse on harmony. And, yeah.
And so you guys haven't taken narrative classes, is that my
No,
understanding?
I'm
Not yet?
not taking any.
Okay. So we'll start with probably just giving a little bit of a background about what narrative is and
Yeah.
what these topics are. Who's leading that? Is that you?
Yeah. So the background for the narrative practice, actually, so we talk about there's an APT. Actually, the APT kind of born out of the working group of narratives that we have at the year before that.
Yeah.
That were during our first year here. So a bunch of people got interested in narrative, and we get together kind of like almost every week. But mostly Sarah was leading it, like doing demonstration, and then so we try to understand it kind of through practice, not like we know a lot of theory about narrative. So we kind of learning by watching, more like watching. We do not do a lot of that because we are still trying to understand, because it's kind of look very it's kind of a magical feel with it, because we kind of don't know, we kind of know that it works, but we don't really know how
Something
it works.
happened, and we have no idea how, but it was so cool. Right, right.
Exactly.
Sarah was working her magic on the conversation.
So we start filming one of the sessions, and then we kind of look at it, analyze it, breaking down. Oh, that's what you do. Oh, that's how what were you thinking? Like what made you ask this question,
Uh-huh.
etc., etc. So we can start learning through that.
Okay.
So today we are doing one of the skills called double listening. That is one of I think kind of fundamental skills that I would say.
Double
if you,
listening.
Double
I'd like to know that. I'd like to learn that.
Yeah. So and Cecily is going to, well, you want to do that warm-up exercise? Or?
Let's tell them more about what narrative is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Do you all know, like, have a concept of narrative within conflict resolution?
Mhm.
Can you share what you know already?
I see
So we're not-
narrative as basically the collective story of a group. Sometimes it's based off of the history, sometimes it's based off of a current event, normally a negative event. It could be a combination of the two, but it's usually something that will drive the collective group toward a goal, just because it's something that can be commonly shared. Narratives also can change over time. So the narrative that you started with at one point may not be the narrative that you come out with later on. And with every narrative, there can be the counter narrative. So it also depends on what side of the conflict you are. Is your narrative, I am righteous because I am the state, or if you're the other side, I am being beaten up and I have a grievance and nobody is listening to me and woe is me. And narratives can be very mobilizing for third-party sources. If your narrative is better than the other person's, you may actually get that support outside of the bargaining table that otherwise you wouldn't get within the bargaining table.
That's great.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell. You got it all, I think.
So when
Because
we,
I read it
was-
someplace.
Culture in there, that's the same thing, right? That's the culture of the people. They use that. That's part of the culture.
yeah, I don't know.
Right.
Embedded in the culture.
Embedded in the culture, okay.
And sometimes,
Go ahead.
sometimes people don't even know why they have their narrative.
Yeah.
Often.
It's just
Yeah.
been part of their culture and part of their way that, you know, they keep on going. Sometimes they're spoon-fed their narrative. Let's look at Bosnia and Sarajevo. Oh yeah, they beat us up 600, 700 years
Yeah.
ago. We must avenge. It's like, well, nothing's happened in the last 600, but it's very flamboyant, emotion-invoking, which many narratives are very emotion-evoking, which I think is part of narrative.
Yeah, so I like what you're talking about because narratives kind of take on a life of their own, right? Like they have a force on us as people. They get us to see things a certain way or act a certain way. And we all have them, and then we're all multi-storied, is what Sarah Koplik say. We all have lots and lots of stories, and the dominant ones are the ones we tell about ourselves. So when we were saying our introductions, I told you my dominant narrative. I am a master's student. I came here. I'm second year. But there are all these other stories about me that I didn't share, that I could share, or some that maybe that aren't even on the front of my head, right? Like they're buried.
They're buried, yeah.
I figured the best way to know the study of narratives is to find somebody that has a family and 3 siblings.
Why is that?
Because you have your story is, I'm the second child, you have the first child, and everybody has their place in their story, and why didn't I get the toy, and I'm not loved as much as the other person, so, you know.
And then there's also these stories you hear about how middle children typically are, or the oldest child is usually a certain way. Those are stories as
families
well.
create their own inner narratives.
Yeah.
Just wait for Thanksgiving and you'll hear narratives.
God.
A couple of lines.
I really like, I'm glad that you brought up the family thing, because I think it's a workable unit that we've all experienced to some degree or another, or we all have an idea about what family means or looks like or sounds like or feels like, or right? I mean, we all have that. And like you said, we all have very specific encounters with that. We all have my story of what it means to be a younger of 2, we're both girls, right? You know, it's a very specific experience of that. And so my story about family draws on that. But there's also the bigger picture of, you know, we're a family of 4, my parents remained married. I mean, there's that.
Yeah, you can go with the functionalism of your place within the family hierarchy, this or that. But as you were leading to, I can also see narratives of being very nested. You have your individual, you have your
Yeah.
family, you have your group.
that.
you
Yeah.
have your-
Yeah.
and it just grows
Yeah.
out and grows out based
Yeah.
off of whoever's name I will forget. Nested theory.
Letter.
As long as we can say nested theory and triangulation, we have done good.
Yeah, we've been our good conflict resolution practitioners.
Dugan, I think that's the name.
Dugan?
Dugan.
Dugan.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
it's good.
agree, do good. So, may I add something to this?
Yeah.
Please.
If, I don't know if it, I think if you put all this in a, like in a picture frame, so this is what we use to make decision frame, is that right? Or do we
Frame?
use narrative? Is that, what's the correlation between a frame
Sure.
that you use to
Sure.
go through life and
It's our mask.
I would-
It's
I would-
actually,
Yeah.
this kind of related to our warm-up exercise, actually. It's a kind of frame of value.
Oh, right. So what Sarah Cobb likes to talk about is that there are better formed stories and stories that are not as better formed. And we live, so a better formed story would be one that's complex and has both like these positive and negative elements in it. Conflict stories are usually very simple. They are,
Bipolar?
They're bipolar. So they're, he's bad, I am good, therefore everything I do in my narratives, everything I talk about is going to fall into that binary.
The other.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So what narrative tries to do is bring out those hidden stories to make stories more complicated, not as binary. And what we're going to do is an exercise at the beginning that kind of that shows what our own binary is, because we all have that. We all live in stories,
Yeah.
and so we'll see what for each of us what this binary is.
okay?
Do you want to get into that now, or you want to talk about?
Well, I wanted to specifically respond to the idea of frame because I think I haven't done this yet, but I think you could argue that a dominant narrative, for example, what it means to be a foreigner, right, in
In the US.
the U.S., right, would be that could be a dominant narrative, right, and that could be a frame. I mean, you can kind of equate that. I'm sure that there are people who would take that idea and rip it apart,
Okay.
but in some senses, I think that our experiences within that frame, right, and that shape that frame could
Yeah.
be similar. Does that?
Because I'm thinking
Answer
about a
question?
frame. A frame is from the whatever perspective that you make your decision.
Right.
Okay, those perspectives include the stories that you share with your culture. All the things that he mentioned
Yeah.
make up the frame that I use to
Yeah.
make a decision
Yeah.
to interact with anybody.
Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking, okay, is it
It's
the same?
related.
or
It's
is
related.
It's related.
I
Okay.
think it's related
Narrative
because
can become your bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could become your
But
bias.
it's influenced by stories, I guess, is what
Yeah,
we
it's
would say, right?
influenced
Your
by stories.
framework is influenced by all these stories that you
Right.
have,
Yeah.
and the dominant stories.
The dominant
So,
story.
Yeah.
We're our culture that we've lost our narrative based off of things like I say, technology, television, this or that, and so much we have become homogenous, where you have narratives and where your more of your narrative is, the good example would be Native American Indians, where their stories and their culture and the story for this and this and this is very funneled into
Yeah.
how they see their place in the
You mean
world.
our story about them?
No, their
or-
story about themselves.
Just about himself.
I might argue with that actually, because I think, well, if I were a purist narrativist, I would say our stories about ourselves as a Western technology-focused culture are just told very differently. So the Native American cultures tell stories. They have a storytelling culture, right, where they have this very explicit history of talking about stories. It's not that we don't have stories, it's just that we tell them very differently.
And
Right?
theirs is extremely focused by culture where we are reinventing our culture continuously. Theirs I see is
Is stagnant or something?
not stagnant. Theirs is very, I'd say the fact that being focused is not the stagnant, it's the fact that they are doing it purposefully. They see richness in keeping their narrative. They see how their narrative from the past is the narrative that will propel them into the future. So they are just on part of the line of your overall narrative.
I don't know what I'm doing.
It's a totally different perspective
One
of
thing I
coming to
like-
narrative. Ours is a building narrative, where I see in some cultures is a continuum narrative. I would say in some
think I
ways
see what you're
maybe
saying.
the outlook of the Chinese culture is that just because of we have been here over time, we know that the time behind us is no more important than the time in front of us because we will endure.
I see what you're saying. So
Because
there's
they will what?
some
Endure.
cultures that have
Anything that comes, bring it
that
on. but we
build
will
off of their
still be
history
here.
more, perhaps, that look backwards more as they're going forward.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of American culture is not as much looking at the past or something along
The
those
acceptance
lines.
that there is a timeline that goes future where a
Yeah.
lot of people just say now is now and the future is going to happen, where sometimes you are just part of the continuum and your narrative is something that is just going to be carried on.
Interesting.
So I'm going to step back even further and say that has to do with our narrative about time, right? I mean, that itself, we tell a story about time, which is very different from other cultures that tell a story about time that is very historically centered, right? But so that narrative, in that sense, frames the way that we see our culture and the idea of progress or the idea of history, right? Or the,
Yeah, it goes back to another phrase I like saying is where you stand depends on where you sit.
Can you explain that further?
Well, your opinion and everything all depends on where you are situated within your culture, within your group and everything is what you're going to say and what you are. So your narrative is very much in where you are focused or what you are embedded in.
It's so hard to see where you are, right? Like, I think that's the part where I have a trouble with in this whole
Sometimes
field,
you-
right?
yeah, it is.
Sometimes it's hard to have that reflection of where am I coming from and
Them
what
damn
point am I
trees-
at
Yeah,
and
them damn trees keep on getting in the way.
and I think that sometimes like I'm the block, right? Like it's hard to see ourselves from an outside perspective because anyway. Can we move on to the values exercise, you guys? Because I really love it. We're going to demonstrate, Grace and I, and then we have such a small group. Maybe we
Well, I was
could-
going to say really quickly, the purpose of narrative in conflict resolution, because we didn't, I think
right.
we've explored the concept of narrative,
Yeah. Why is
but
this
narrative and
part
conflict resolution, what we hope and what the narrative, Center for Narrative is exploring is how can we use the stories of conflict and the stories that are linear, as you talked about, sort of binary, and use those as an intervention. Right? So actually purposefully focusing on the stories that people tell, the way they tell them, down to word choice. I mean,
Yeah.
it can get very, very specific. It can also be meta. It can be looking at media reports, right? It can be looking at policy, right? At textbooks that kids read or whatever. But it can also get to us having a conversation and working that way. So that's, I mean, it's a very broad means of looking at conflict, but it is,
I think it's pretty good.
it is,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Today, however,
Yeah.
our demonstration will be focused more on interpersonal
Yeah.
conflict because it's kind of we want to just start with a small scale, just
More
kind of
manageable.
make it simpler to think about it first, and so we kind of see the conflict story is the dominance like, or you call it master narrative there, and then we're trying to find out the as to basically foster and develop the alternative story or called counter story, and through double listening.
Yeah.
One of the way double listening is like double listening while listening for the conflict story. We're also looking for clues that we can use to develop and foster a counter story. So that is the goal of today.
I like the use of the master story over the dominant story because I can see where a dominant story could change over time, new dominance, but a master story is always going to be that, I hate using the phrase root cause, but it's that idea that it's the taproot.
Yeah.
So when you say the
Nice.
master story, you're talking about the colonial powers type of masters.
Master is like kind of like imagine the master has this power.
Yeah.
Power like control is, and
Center of
you
gravity.
don't necessarily aware of it.
Okay.
And in the case that we're going to demonstrate, the conflict story is the
Okay.
master.
Okay.
narrative. But not all master narrative is conflict story, of course. Like there are master narratives out there, like maybe on liberty, on whether people should just have one partner, like
Marriage.
Or the
Marriage.
ultimate
Standard
shared
of joint
one
marriage.
is the Noah's Ark and the Great Flood. How many cultures have the Great Flood narrative?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a very specific story.
Yeah.
That's true.
The collective conscious and the collective unconscious.
Kristen, you've been trying to start us.
That's all right.
We get so
I just
caught
get so
up in all
excited
of
about this exercise. I was thinking, I thought initially that Grace and I would demonstrate this, but we have such a small group that maybe I can just pick a volunteer.
yeah,
I volunteered him.
Yes. Would you mind writing the words?
Not
since you
at
know them?
all.
Okay. So this exercise is going to get us to think about our own constructs, our good and bad constructs. And it's hopefully going to shed some light about who we are and what we value.
Wow, and I pay good money to do this by the hour.
I don't want it to feel like a therapy session, but
It's interesting. We've had talks about this because narrative work can be very therapeutic. It can be very cathartic. Like you feel like, oh, I feel so much better than I did before we had this conversation. But calling it therapy would imply a different role between the people who are interacting, right?
Yeah.
And so
The-
it's
the
not
goal is
therapy.
it's not therapy.
Therapy
It just-
is a one-word narrative of its own.
Yeah,
Well, right.
exactly.
Right.
There's a lot of weight there. It is very personal. And in our class last year, we had a lot of times working with each other on our own conflicts that got very personal. Personal things came up, and it was cathartic at times. So anyway, all that to say, this is a safe space.
That's right.
So, JR,
Okay.
I want you to think about. This isn't scary. This isn't scary. We're friends here. I want you to think about all of the different groups of people that you interact with in your life. So,
Okay.
family, colleagues at work, classmates at school, all the different social groups that you are a part of.
Okay.
Probably lots of them. And then I want you to think of 3 individuals. Any 3
Yeah.
people that you know. Don't tell me
Within
who.
one of those groups? Or,
They don't have to be.
okay.
Yeah, any 3 people, but people that you know, not just acquaintances.
Not a coincidence. People that I know, even if I don't see them anymore.
Yes.
That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, they don't have to be part of your daily life.
But people that you have a sense of who they are.
I don't have a sense of it. All right.
Now, do you have 3?
Yeah, I do have 3, I think.
Okay. Now think of which 2 out of the 3 are most alike.
Most alike. Yeah. Most similar.
Most similar, most alike. Do you know which 2 those are?
Hold on a second. Let me
Okay.
get. Two. Okay. Who are? Damn, they don't look like at all. I picked 3 different people.
That's fine.
One of them is related to. Well, one of them is my son. Is that okay?
You can choose
Yeah, that's fine.
anyone.
Anyone.
And they
No
don't
cartoon
have to be
characters.
automatically alike, but it's up to you
To see
to
if
figure out which are the 2 that are most alike. For whatever reason. It's up to you to figure out that connection between them. There's no rules about that.
Just to give you a hint, the next question I'm going to ask you is to give me a word that captures how they are alike, but not about physical characteristics, but something about them themselves. So once you have the 2 that are alike, what is the word that captures how they are alike
Wow. That's tough.
in their personality?
In their personality.
Or
don't have to be personality.
Well, I don't wanna
Could
say,
be-
like,
could be ability or anything.
But just not physical characteristic. That I
Yeah,
did this with my
right.
boyfriend. He was like, they're short, and I was like, no,
It's not gonna help.
not gonna work.
Is
I
he
got my
thinking
girlfriend here, I got my son, I got an old friend of mine. They I don't look at all. I don't see how I can lump him.
Are
Why
they?
do they inspire you? What is a word that, when you think of them, that comes to mind? Two of them that are common. What comes from the heart?
That's a very good point. Two of them that are common. Now, he gave me a hint there.
Okay.
Those two I can say, my friend, she's not here, she's somewhere else. And then my girlfriend, I think through problems, this tend to stick with you. So there is no fickleness.
So one word.
What is the word that would describe that?
It must be your word.
Yeah, we can't give you any.
Okay. Support or royalty.
Nice.
So they are loyal.
Yeah.
Great word. All right, the next question is, how are people who are not like this? How are people who are not loyal? And give me one word.
Oh, if somebody's not loyal, they are fickle.
And which of these two is it better to be?
I want to be loyal.
Okay. And why is it better to be loyal?
Because I think the reason why because
In one word.
in one word, dependability.
Depend. And how are people who are not dependable? What are they like?
Untrustworthy.
And which is better to be?
I want to be dependable.
And in one word, can you tell me why it's better to be dependable?
Oh, well,
It's hard, I know.
I think one word why it is good to be dependable. Well, you are reliable when you're dependable. Well, do they mean the same thing?
I would call them synonyms. Why is it good to be reliable or dependable? What makes that a good
what it-
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing to be that because people can depend on. No, that's the same thing. Why is it good to be dependable? Why is it good to be reliable?
And you can talk it through. What does it look like to you?
There's a certain trust that is involved when you are dependable and reliable. You are like a rock. Anybody can say, okay, I know Mr. X is very dependable. He's a loyal guy. I can talk to. Let me go see him or her, whoever that person is.
Why is that a good thing?
Because it's therapeutic.
I know this is really hard. We had the same troubles in our
Yeah.
class as well.
Well, I think it's a good thing because I think for society to go forward, we want to be dealing with people in our group, or anyway in society, anybody deal with, to be dependable. So,
So when
advancement of
you
society, for the advancement of society,
advancement?
we want people to be dependable. So
when
now
you
what's
are
one word?
dependable,
Huh?
right? When you are dependable, why is that good for another person?
Peace of mind. What do you think? I know it's my exercise, but
Can I throw something out as an
Sure.
outside hack? I caught a phrase that you used earlier, and I don't know if you realize you said it. You said, "I want to be dependable."
yeah.
So, describe why do you want to be dependable?
You know, there's something, I think I read that somewhere in one of my classes. It's just that we want the story, we want to be the story that whatever in life we want it to be standard. We want it to be the type of man, what's this? What's the I forgot what the article was.
Stable or standard?
No, not stable per se, but you want a standard in everything. We want people to react the same, the way that society says people should respond. You see what I'm saying? So, for example, somebody who's dependable, everybody has a frame of mind what the person is. So, therefore, if I go to Van and I know if Van is dependable, so I know how Van is going to act.
So you can kind of predict it?
You can kind of predict the way. Well, that's probably why we have so much conflict, so much disappointment. When you expect the person to be, when you put a prediction on the person's action and the person doesn't act the way you wanted, then you are disappointed. That's why we have boyfriend, girlfriend, wives, and couples disappointment because, I was expecting you to do this, but you didn't do it. So. So what is the other word for disappointment?
So, but you were saying the reason this is good, dependable is good, is because it's predictable, because you can. Is that right?
But it's the same thing for untrustworthy. If you know a particular person is untrustworthy, there's a predictability in that person's action too, right?
Would it be fair to say that as we're sort of moving from dependable is good because it is not disappointing?
It is not disappointing.
So
could
then,
run to that
if
level.
if you're not disappointing,
Wouldn't that be disappointing or not?
disappointing. I'm gonna go ahead and just put the phrase up. So
Yeah.
not
okay.
disappointing. You're not disappointing others.
Yeah.
How would you?
Does this need to be on that side? I'm confused. Because wouldn't this be?
I'm just trying to get
Oh, I
a
see.
one word.
Oh, sorry. So this is
Oh,
the
use
next
your
level.
magic and just go.
Right. I can erase that.
Yeah.
I will erase that.
Okay, so if it's not somebody who's not disappointing, so that means this is a consistency, consistent. Even that is has a double whammy to it. Why? Because the bad person, not really bad person, the person who's fickle, the person who is untrustworthy can be consistent too. But however, there's a consistency in response, there's a consistency in action that you find in somebody who's dependable. That's why it's good.
So people who are not consistent are what?
They get fickle. So those who are not consistent, therefore,
I think. Well, you had
Yeah,
disappointing up there earlier. Which
Say again?
Disappointing came out earlier, but I'm not sure if that's
yeah,
what you wanted to say.
yeah, consistent. I would say disappointing. Yeah, I think
You sure?
those who are not consistent tends to be disappointing because we expect something from them and then sometimes they don't. Yeah.
Do you want to go up another level, or is that going to be too much?
Oh, we can
Yeah?
try it because hey, this is.
Want to try one more level?
This is.
All right, we'll
He's
do.
digging himself out of the hole, so you know.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so which is better to be, consistent or disappointing?
Consistent, yeah.
And why is it better to be consistent?
This is kind of selfish, I would say. It's because you want to be consistent. You want to be.
Sorry, what is selfish? What were we
No, I
saying?
would say this is. I think this is human nature to be selfish in a way.
No.
I want to be. I want to be dependable. I want to be consistent because I don't want you to see me as being disappointing.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
see
your,
what you're saying.
your motivation,
I
right,
see what you're
for
saying.
being consistent is
Is
so that people will turn to you for help, or they'll know.
Yeah, that could be
They can
selfish.
trust you, and yeah.
But of course,
sure.
everybody has their own values. So
Right.
Well, I like this though, because how do you think people see you when you're being consistent?
as somebody who's trustworthy.
And what else? What else? How do they feel
Yeah.
about you?
What do you think about you? Okay, this guy is consistent. He's dependable. He's reliable. He's a person that you can trust. You know, sometimes people will tell you that, and that's what I like in America. They tell you, That's okay. He's gonna curse you out, he's gonna say it kind of word, but at least he's consistent. Yeah, he got a lot of work. So
I like
at least he's
that.
consistent. Yeah. What do people think of you when they see that you are consistent? They see some, oh wow.
Or what does it do for them
Good question. What does it do for somebody else?
to know that you are consistent?
Peace of mind.
Yeah, you said that earlier.
I keep coming back to that.
Okay.
We could do
I
that.
think that's your.
That's good.
It's,
That's
I
good.
think that's your. Because I think that's.
yeah, it gives
That's
people
what-
peace of
what-
mind because at least they don't have to worry about you too much. If they know you're consistent, dependable, reliable, so that I think there's one thing for them to worry about. Just like when you go to a bad neighborhood, for example, you don't know who you're going to deal with, but you know the neighborhood is bad. It's been clocked to be bad. So you approach that neighborhood with a peace of mind? No, you're always on your guard. Your blood pressure is high because you're not really. You have to watch. Okay, who's coming behind me? Who's this? I don't know who that is. And the person can be having a gun or a knife. So that doesn't. You don't have peace of mind once you go through that neighborhood, whether it's only for 5 minutes or 1 hour. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I want to know
What
how
is
are
the-
people who are not like that? It's kind of a weird thing to say.
Oh, that's
But
hard.
what's
People who don't have.
people who don't have peace of mind? What do they have?
Oh, chaos.
How are they like?
How are they? Yeah.
How are they? Without peace of mind, you have a lot of conflicts, a lot of stress, and then
What's the word? Give us a one.
What was the first word you actually just said? Ooh, chaos.
chaos.
Oh, did you
That's
say
the
that?
first words out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's why you always go by your first instinct anyway.
So
Yeah.
we have on one side peace of mind, consistent, dependable, loyal.
Yeah.
On the other side, fickle, untrustworthy, disappointing, chaos. What do you think of when you look at these side by side? Is there anything there that's surprising to you, or does that reflect, you think, how you
Construct.
see the world to an extent?
Or see the world?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the world. You're talking about on all these together or
No,
one side?
So this side is you enjoy being around people who are consistent, dependable, loyal. You
Okay.
strive for this. You strive to have peace of mind.
Yeah.
On the other side, this is how you do not want to be. This is how people who are like this, you do not want to surround yourself with.
No,
Does that make sense or no?
that makes sense.
Is there anything there that surprised you? Any words?
No, because I don't like people who are fickle. That's the problem with when Obama lost the first. I know that's politics. When he lost the first debate, all of a sudden everybody went to Romney. I said, well, that's being fickle. If you really are for you're somebody that you want to be, if the person lost a battle, what you do? Go back, young man. I know you can do it. You stay with them. You stay with the team. So
Cool, interesting.
interesting. So, what was the purpose of this exercise?
Well, one of
Are we done yet?
Yeah,
You feel
we
good about
could
yourself?
keep going on, but
Yeah,
well,
we could do this again with another group of people and do another thing. One of the things that we look at in narratives is how we divide the world, right? How do we differentiate between people, between good, between bad? If we had done this with me, we did do this with me last year, it would have looked very different. Because the way that I divide the world comes from a different place,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
It comes from, I think the word that I ended up with was loving
and cruel.
and cruel or evil or
Oh, okay.
something like that. And that's how I divide the world,
Okay.
right? That's what's motivating me.
Okay.
Something in addition that is actually important to highlight is like if you look at them, they're not necessarily the logic polarizing. What I mean is that like you can have like what is the opposite word to maybe peace of mind? It could be like crazy,
Yeah.
you know, like crazy, or what would be the opposite of like consistent? Could be like random.
Random,
You know,
okay.
people be like, oh, random, but it could be like good thing, like surprise. Or people think that consistency is not a good thing, and then surprise is more predictable. Oh,
Yeah.
I like surprise in life. So what we're looking is kind of like what people put opposites, but it's kind of the construction of meaning
Of meaning? Okay.
around what's considered opposite. Is like the opposite of accurate. It's not necessarily inaccurate. It is not automatic. Everybody is different. Have a different portal.
And that's why we try not to put words in your mouth. So I'm sorry
Yeah.
if we did that because it
No,
definitely
because that
comes
was
from
the hardest stuff for me.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm
hard.
glad
It comes from you though. It comes
Yeah.
from like how you see the world. And I know some people who would say, "Oh, fickle, that's a great thing." You know? So it's all different.
Keep life
Yeah.
interesting.
I think fickle is, maybe I put the wrong meaning to fickle. I think fickle is somebody who just,
It's fine for
with
you.
you for 1 minute and then they're gone.
Yeah, that's
The next.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
What I liked about this exercise is sometimes the words that he said immediately were also the words he didn't realize he said. You didn't
Yeah, I
hear
didn't realize
your-
I said-
You didn't hear your first words, which were
Yeah, yeah.
actually probably the most telling.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
telling, yeah.
Like this kind of exercise is like better not to think too much. It's
Yeah.
like
It's
it's like
true.
your
They're
your
just
gut.
coming out,
Sometimes
yeah.
the gut, oh,
That's
predictable
true.
or whatever. Yeah.
That's true. And a lot of times when we did the exercise last year, we surprised ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Like when Cecily said cruel, she was like, "I never used that word. Like, why would I
Yeah.
have said that? Like, it's
I
so
didn't even
weird.
know it
just
was in my
came out.
lexicon. Like, why was it?
It just came out, and so it was interesting
Yeah,
to
interesting.
do that. It does take a little while though, because it's hard to
Yeah, it's
think
hard to
about
really-
what the opposite is.
Yeah,
Or-
what about that?
Yeah,
It's a good exercise.
we could do it again with Van, or we could move on.
Move on.
You want to move on? You don't want to do this? No? Okay, we can move on.
Wait a minute. You're gonna
I volunteered you. That's not a cop-out, it's part of my lexicon.
That's funny.
Well, but we already can explain the exercise, so it may not
I know
work
it'd be tainted at this point.
effectively for him.
Yeah, it's tended, yeah, you're
No.
right.
We still did it.
Yeah, we do. We can do it if you want to, or we could go through do the next part and then come back later on if you want to. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was doing it in my head also. so I
Yeah,
came
I'm
up with
sure.
mine.
Double listening.
So shall we?
Yeah, let's move on to double listening. We have cookies. I'm really missing sweet.
I know. I was gonna bring cookies because I didn't know we had food. Do you want to take a break and grab a sandwich so that you can make it
It's
through
so
the?
Escar structured.
What do
What
you
is-
mean?
It's
The
the
food?
little rolls.
Yeah, it's all the same caterer, right?
You know, take the Amara approach. Where's the hummus?
Yeah. The Christian approach. Where's the chocolate cookie?
Right. Where's my chocolate?
They
usually have those platter of cookies.
6:30 when he's trying to come in and take the stuff away. It's like, we haven't finished the cookies.
It is always funny when they come in and then like, I was saving that for later, and you took the whole platter.
If we played the game with mine, it would have been more free spirit than rigid. That's where I see my defining line.
Yeah.
You know, those that are willing to expand and do
Sort of
stuff and go out
constrict
there,
versus
opposed to people
expand,
that
yeah.
really don't want to learn, be stuck in their rut. Those are
Nice.
the ones that just,
Yeah.
maybe that's why I've been in school for the last 30 years.
Always
So is-
learning, never ends.
I feel like we actually took this discussion a step further when we did this. Could be making this up, but I think we talked about why that the negative side, whichever side it would have been, was negative to us. And I feel like we got to the fact that, or maybe Sarah was just explaining when we did it for her, that she was like, I don't like this because I'm afraid that I have that. Do you all remember that?
I do.
I don't remember how we got
don't.
there, but it was very interesting that we got to the part where it was like, oh, there are parts of us that reflect these things that we don't like, right? And it's part of why we divide the world that way, because
Yeah.
there's a part of that in us, and we
Yeah.
want to choose the good in us, right? We want to
People
choose
don't
the
wanna
right
look
in
at their
us,
animus.
right?
Yeah.
Right. It's so interesting.
I don't remember what the questions were in the discussion. I remember she said something about,
Yeah.
is there a moment in time in your history that kind of reflects this word, one or the other? Because I remember I was talking about something from my childhood.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Your cosmic turning point.
Right. So, double listening. You all have a handout, which we wrote up, and it is pretty much plagiarizing a workshop that we went to last spring, I think it was, given by John Winslade. John Winslade is a big narrative practitioner. He's a big name in the practice of narrative. He's Australian, and he and Sarah have worked closely together. He's written a number of sort of the seminal texts.
He teaches at in Sacramento, I think.
Oh, does he?
He lives in California now.
Okay. missed
University
that.
of the Pacific,
I'm not sure.
that's Sacramento.
I'm not sure which one.
John Winslade was building on work that he has done with Michael White,
Oh, and Michael White.
and on Michael White's ideas. So they did a fair amount of work together, of workshop presentation together, of teaching and training and theory development together. And unfortunately, Mr. White passed away a couple of years ago. But, pardon me.
They both have books out that are
They
about
both have
all of these
books.
things. And
Yeah.
actually, Michael White's book that we read in class, Maps of Narrative Practice, is that what it's called?
Something like that.
It's a really great book.
Is it?
Really great book. I would highly recommend it. It spells it out step by step, and he gives these beautiful case by case examples, so you can see the dialogue between him and the people he was working
You
with.
was working with? Okay.
It's wonderful.
So that's the background that we are coming with. And before we get too much further, I want to acknowledge that this is something that we still struggle very much to do.
Okay.
So we learned it last year,
Okay.
but one of the reasons we want to have this group is so we can practice it. Because that's what you need to be doing, and it's often hard to find people with whom to practice,
Yeah.
in sort of a safe space. So that's sort of the purpose of this time together. So we'll be able to give you the background and the precepts of it, but we're by no means experts here. So
And
hopefully that will help.
Let us know if you think that we should do it differently. Oh,
Yeah,
I don't think
sure.
I should
We'll
say
appreciate
that.
feedback.
And, definitely.
We'll appreciate
Yeah.
feedback, absolutely.
And Kristen,
Yes.
he's a Kiwi, not an Aussie.
Oh,
Is it
okay.
Michael White?
Ooh, yes,
Oh,
Kiwi.
that would have been a.
but Winslade. Winslade is Australian.
Winslade, I mean, yes,
Okay,
no, he's
Winslade
a
is
Kiwi.
he's a Kiwi. All right, good to know. We will not tell him
Winslade's
to
from
his
New
face.
Zealand? You said that? Oh, that's
New Zealand, New Zealand, New
that
Zealand, New Zealand, New
is
Zealand.
right. You're right. He mentioned that. Ooh.
University of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
But Michael White, I think, is awesome. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So the exercise that Kristen led us through, if you think about, there was an immediate answer. Well, we got to an immediate answer, right? Of these people who were dependable or loyal, right? And it turns out, as we sort of got to the next layer and to the next layer, I think the idea of layers is kind of helpful. And this also goes back to, Van, I think what you said about the nesting, the idea of nesting. We have a story, right, in a conflict, and usually there's another layer behind it. There's something that has motivated us to say what it is that we're saying. Right? So double listening, that double part, is hearing that upfront piece and listening for what's behind.
Okay.
Okay? I don't know if does
Clues
the
to get
visual
to what's
help?
fun, yeah.
Yeah?
Or maybe another kind of simplified way to think about that visual is kind of like that import thing. Is it called import? In one way you can look at it as a face, and then there are also two faces.
Yeah.
But usually people only can see in either the face or the faces. I mean, without looking, or without they're being told, oh, actually you can also see their faces.
Right.
Usually there's a dominant tendency to look at it only one way. So in a way, simplified way, you can say, oh, well, do you also see like, oh, there may be a mouth there, something like that. So we can ask him some questions so that people can see it differently. But in a way, that is a simplified way to think about it. But if that helps, we will do it.
If that helps. That's right. So the purpose of using double listening, I'm going to repeat this first paragraph here, is what we brought up before in a conflict story. There's always a counter story. There's always, okay, we have this awful, awful relationship, but there's a flip side to that. It could be better, or maybe there have been moments of better, right? Or maybe there actually was a good relationship there. And conflict resolution through narrative practice is about accessing that different, that other, right? That better. And giving that to people so they can choose. Which one do they want, right? We would probably assume, right, or think that most people want the better story. They want to be unstuck from whatever conflict they are in, right? Whatever narrative they find themselves sort of trapped by. But it's our opportunity as interveners, as practitioners, to be able to offer them that choice. I gave an example down here at the bottom of double listening to anger. So if you're having a conversation with someone who is very angry, just knowing about anger in and of itself, right? Anger generally is a protest about or a happiness with the way that something is, right? Often it's an evaluation or a judgment that something is wrong. It should be different, right? So I am angry because
Because you care.
my husband didn't do the dishes, right? Listening to that anger says, I think it's wrong that he didn't do the dishes. So what's the flip side of that?
Could the flip side be the reason why he didn't do the dishes?
What we're trying to get at is that it's wrong to not do the dishes.
Yeah.
It is right to do the dishes.
Or it's right when I don't have to do the dishes.
Well, my husband might say that, right? But if I'm the one saying I'm angry because he did not do the dishes,
Uh-huh.
what we're listening for is, I think it's right to do the dishes. What I'm expressing is, I'm angry because he didn't do the dishes, right?
So,
And
you-
what we listen for is, what's motivating me to think that it's wrong that he did that?
And what are the values there also? So going back to our other exercise, if she thinks it's wrong that he didn't do the dishes, what does she value? Does she value clean dishes?
Clean
Does she
dishes.
value responsibility? There are themes there that we can
Health.
tease out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So another way of just some other language that people use about double listening, and double listening is something that could be used outside of narrative practice, right? It's
Okay.
we're just focusing on narrative practice because that's what we're interested in. But if you think of the explicit of what I actually said, there is an implicit that I didn't say, that it's based upon, right? So Michael White talked about the absent but implicit. And it's being able to listen for what's not said
That's it.
that's motivating it. They both talk about what's on the other side of the corn, right? What's the underbelly of a concept? Is there a light side? Are we talking about the light side? Then what's the dark side? Right? And key words in a conversation to listen for are words like but, right? Because that is when there's a very obvious bifurcation between, right? We were doing great, but then he didn't do the dishes. Oh, okay. So another way, another story that is there is we were doing great, right? And usually people focus on the but. He wasn't doing the dishes, right? And so bringing the story back to we were doing great, right? Exploring that a little bit more. Other speech patterns or moments to sort of delve into in a conversation, and I'm just gonna throw these at you because I know it's a lot, and we'll be able to talk through them. Words alike but are although, despite, unless, that kind of turning word, right? It turns a conversation. When people give you an aside, well, yeah, but I mean, that was just like that one day.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's like this,
Yeah.
right? That aside that they threw away is a whole different story, right? That they are not including in their master narrative.
Yeah.
Things that are glossed over. When people use general phrases, idioms, right? Well, birds of a feather flock together. So that's the one that I do, right? It's someone's explanation
Those
Yeah.
people.
for, right, those people, right? That's something to explore. And it can open up this idea of other things that are
Doesn't tell you what they
motivating.
really think. They're using these other words. So like exploring that and understanding what they mean by that.
Yeah. And then, last but not least, when someone describes a unique outcome, a one-time event, something that was different, when they say, well, yeah, there was this one time when he did do the dishes. Oh, well, let's talk about that, right? Like, what was that like? Why do you think that happened? How did you feel? What was going on then? And elaborating that. So that is not at all the only thing about double listening, but it's what we wanted to be able to give you during this time, to at least start with. And we'll probably have to start, for our sake, baby steps.
Yeah. And I just want to do a time check. It is 6:16. I don't know if we want to do a demo or just jump right in. What do you think?
Maybe a small demo,
Small demo?
just a very small demo.
Okay.
What are you all thinking?
Sylvie?
Do you want to see how this works in action, and then we can
For double.
have you join us?
Double listening.
Double listening?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me see how it works. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still looking for the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
the
ahead.
nugget of it. Okay.
Do you want to sit over here, Grace?
So Grace is going to intervene on my conflict story.
Interview, more like interview.
She's going to interview me. That's right.
having
Ask some
conversation.
questions.
And I will, just for my own peace of mind, since that's important to us, say that this conflict is based on real life, but I'm trying to give you more of a conflict so that we have something to work with. And if you want to know more about the actual situation, we can talk about that later. But we didn't talk about what we will talk about.
But
But so what did you catch up? What did you catch on
I just
that?
heard the but.
You
just heard the but,
It was
okay.
about the conflict before, but we'll get
That's right. Right.
No, but I don't know about it.
That's a good one.
No.
So, Cecily, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay, thanks. Yeah.
I thought there's some conflict story you want to share with me.
Yes. So we were talking yesterday. My husband is Jason, and Jason and I were talking, and I'm projecting this up, if you can imagine, about 20 years into the future. Okay, so I am 20 years older, and our life is 20 years along. So Jason and I were talking yesterday, and it looks like Jason's parents are probably going to have to move into a home. They just are in such poor health, and are really, not doing well. And that's its own sort of difficulty. But the thing that Jason and I are getting caught up on right now is his brother. His brother is special needs and has been living with his parents for his whole life. And Jason really wants to invite Justin into our home, so that we would then have Justin living with us. And I am not happy with that. Our kids have just gone off to college, and so we finally have some freedom and the ability to travel, and just a lot more of a sense of just being the two of us. Like we have our marriage back in a way that we didn't when our kids were living at home. And I do not want to have Justin living in our house. He doesn't go out a lot, and he's a big talker. And it's usually great. We can have really wonderful conversations. But I feel like if he comes and lives with us, there'd be no escape. So.
Have you and Jason talked about that before? I mean, the possibility of having Justin to move in with you guys, like before the
Well, we talked
marriage?
about it, before we got married, but that was a really long time ago. And I feel like we've grown a lot and we've changed a lot. And like our life has been very different, certainly, than we planned it would be. And I feel like we're at a point where, because we have more freedom of choice now that our kids are gone, that we need to live into that, and we need to take care of our marriage in a way that we haven't been able to focus on.
What other possibility are there? Like, does Jason and Justin has other siblings?
Well, yeah, they have a sister, but Justin and she don't get along, and so. There's really not a question that Justin would go live with her. It wouldn't be, I think, healthy. And Justin could go live in a group home. I think it would give him something to do, people to socialize with. They have lots of activities. He could get engaged in that kind of a thing. I think it would just be a really good thing for him to have that.
Can you talk a little bit more why Justin and their sister do not get along?
Cara.
Cara.
Yeah, I think they're very similar. And that's it's one of those sibling things where like they're too much alike, and so they butt heads all the time. I think they're both very stubborn and they don't have a lot of patience for each other, and so they've just never had a good relationship.
However, like it sounds like Justin and Jason are going along well.
Yeah, we've always gotten along with Justin great, but my impression is that part of that is because we've had distance. We haven't lived next to him, right? Cara and Justin have lived very close, not even 10 minutes away by drive, and we've lived in a different state. So I feel like it's been easy for us to maintain.
Did all the siblings grow up together?
Yeah, they're all only a year and a half apart.
So while Jason was growing up and Clara also growing up, they all grew up together with Justin having special needs, right? Throughout their childhood and youth.
Yeah.
How do you think that it's just your guess. I know you were not there, like witnessing their growing up together. But let maybe you and Jason talk about his childhood, how it's like that growing up with a sibling with special need. How was it? How has Jason's role and involvement in Justin's development? Or just your guess, it's not like it.
Yeah, I think they were probably pretty typical siblings. They didn't get along very well.
They didn't get along well?
They fought all the time, just because they were all so close in age, and they, had
They're
typical
boys.
spats, right? They were boys or whatever. But it wasn't until Jason went to seminary and really started to question and think about, you know, sort of his role that he was able to listen to Justin a little bit better.
Do you guys mind if I time out for a second? So can we just do a quick analysis of what's going on right now? It seems like you're...
Yeah, so I can get
Yeah,
it.
go ahead. Oh, you're...
No,
What do you hear or what do you see?
I'm not sure yet. Go ahead.
Okay.
So it seems like Grace is exploring a lot of the history, the backstory there.
Basically,
And
just try to get more information.
get more
for
information.
now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe I shouldn't have
And then,
interrupted,
well,
sorry.
and then the last question, last question is I am trying to dig into it a little bit.
What is that? The relationship between Jason and his brother? Okay.
Jason's contributions into his brother, and then she started talking about very recently how Jason basically changed because growing up or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I
she's
think
not
he just
Jason.
matured.
because of
Right.
just
Well, I was going to point out a couple of key things that she said here about freedom of choice and
Yeah.
taking care of her marriage. Something about life being different than planned. Did you say that? Yeah, I wrote that down. So yeah, exploring like her feelings more there,
I
And-
could also go to that line.
and her like. I'm wondering like what she fears. Like, what is this like? This guy's gonna come move in. How is that gonna change
Yes.
things? Like, how is like what is she? What's the like? What might life look like later down the road if he moves in?
And I also saw the backside of that one where life has changed so much from where we were 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that realization that, oh, we started out one way and now 20 years with children, it's not what we expected.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen next?
Okay. We'll let you continue. Sorry. I just wanted to pause. Did you want to say anything else, JR?
No, I'm just following.
I think about that, but I'm actually not sure how to ask about that yet, because she's going to she seems to see like Justin maybe a threat to his marriage, but I will get I actually should get back to that because that
Clarify any assumptions that you make.
but maybe I will explore my mind a little bit more. So but you will keep talking about Justin,
The question was-
Jason seminary.
Yeah, Jason went to seminary, and I think that was a really pivotal moment in his life, or period in his life, where he matured and he really questioned his role in the family and was able much better to listen to Justin. So I don't know that Justin had anything to do with it. You know, like I think it was just Jason maturing.
So you don't think Justin has contributed anything to Jason's choice and development?
Well, I'm sure he has. I'm sure Jason would be a very different person if Justin were not in his life, or had not been a part of his life from the beginning. You know, he wouldn't have an older brother, and he wouldn't have a sensitivity to what it means to be different, you know, and what it means to have special needs. And I think it would, you know, it's given him personal experience with some difficult life issues. Like, for all intents and purposes, his family has just been really easy, right? They've had enough money, they've had good education, like a lot of their needs have been taken care of, but they're not perfect. They're not like a picture perfect family or whatever. And you know, I think has given Jason a lot of ability to just understand and listen to people better.
Instead of just having a pretty smooth life,
Right.
it's kind of like a sort of a challenge, a little bit challenge. If we can go back a little bit earlier, you mentioned, you know, something about you're a little bit worried about your marriage, that about freedom, you know, kind of this stage in your life,
Yeah.
this moment, having the possibility of somebody else entering again after your children left.
Yeah. I feel like we have worked really hard over the past 20 or so years to provide for other people, right? And to make a home and to serve and to take care of our kids and to be good members of our community. And you know, like we've really contributed a lot to the outside world. And I just feel like I'm tired and I want to have time with Jason and I want to strengthen our marriage by spending time together and by traveling, which is something that we love to do together, but we haven't done it without kids in I don't know how long since we got married, right? And that kind of a thing is important to me. Like, I just want to be able to get up and go to Maine for the weekend. I've never been to Maine. Anyway, I'd like to be able to go for the weekend.
That would be nice.
It'd be nice.
How's the, do you guys expect to have children together? I mean, I didn't know like whether it's like a decision that's made together or, you know, something.
Yeah, I mean,
like
we knew when we got married that we wanted to have kids. And we
then
did.
and then the responsibility and then the probably less freedom, it sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we love our children very much, but there's no question that that has restricted a lot of the choices we might have made if we didn't have children.
Does that also give you some choices you didn't expect? You didn't expect that you have before you become a mother?
Yeah.
Before you take care, you know, have it take.
Parenthood changes everything. Absolutely.
So what
there's-
are the more choices that you may have discovered while during your parenthood?
Can I pause?
Mm-hmm.
That was an awesome question because what you're doing right there is opening up the unexpected, right? And sort of targeting my fear of I'd like to have things planned. But looking that, okay, well, I mentioned already, like you pointed out, that I had not had things planned, right? Things have not gone as planned. But you're saying, and where was the joy in that?
That's why I'm asking whether even your parenthood is planned.
Well,
Right.
you're saying even though she's talking about the parenthood being like, oh, it was restricting, we lost all this
Right.
freedom, you're saying, but there was positive there too. There was
Right.
something wonderful there.
Well, because usually people being parents, they can realize the negative side of parents, but they don't talk so negatively about parents because.
You say she's being a bad actress or something?
No, she is perfect, but I can sense there is some frustration there. So I was actually a bit suspecting that maybe she was being forced as a parent. It's kind of maybe it is actually Jason's ex-wife's children together. So after she got married to him, she kind of forced into being a parent.
Ah.
I kind of feel a little bit like that.
A resistance,
But
yeah.
so I was just checking whether it is a choice made freely,
Right.
out of your free will, you know.
Right.
Because usually if it's a choice made of free will, well, people are like, well, damn, you choose to be a parent, suck it up, kind of like that. I mean, well, I
Right.
mean, I won't say that, but people know that master narrative is out there, so they won't present themselves as if like there's nothing to gain our parenthood.
Yeah. So what I thought was beautiful about what you were doing has very much to do with my concept of parenthood. And full disclosure, I'm not a parent yet. We do plan to have kids, but I have no idea what it's like to be a parent. I can only imagine. But my narrative about what it means to be a parent is that it is your highest highs and your most beautiful joys, right, can come from being a parent. It can also be your lowest lows, right? It can be your most disappointing moments, right, with children, but that what you were going to draw out of me was that the most beautiful moments of my life have been provided to me by my children, which was unexpected, which was unplanned. It was not something that I foresaw. Which is why I paused and was like, right on, sister. Okay. So
what are those choices?
okay, back into the conversation.
And time check is 6:30, 6:33.
Or should we just open it for practice?
Do you guys want to practice at all? Either you asking questions or we asking questions of you? Or do you want to continue to see where this goes?
Or Or you guys can take my role and then ask questions like,
Just wrapping my head around the fact that if this sort of mirrors a little bit of reality, the fact that you're looking 20 years down the future at this issue and you're seeing that, okay, you get your freedom back, but this possibility of losing your freedom, that, whoa,
Yeah.
that is an issue there, but
Yeah.
at least you're working it. But that being said, it's also possibly part of you like to have some predictability or control. And here you're trying to control the issue a little bit out.
So I wonder if what we could do is actually keep the conversation going for maybe another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we can stop and we can analyze and get at those master narratives, right? What are the values that I'm working in? What are the assumptions that I'm working in? And how could we ask about those and come up with some of those questions?
Sure.
In a very explicit manner instead of actually just trying it right away.
Sure.
Right? So spend
Yeah.
some time with it because I feel like this is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
And I was
know
just
there's
seeing
stuff-
you kind of, we don't want to overburden.
Yeah.
Self-exploring stuff is what I do with my therapist.
Yeah, yeah. So,
All right, game on.
okay. So you were going to ask me.
so what are some of the choices that actually came up, not within your expectation
Yeah.
during your parenthood?
Well, I mean, one of the bigger choices that I think about is the house that we bought 15 years ago. Because I mean, we have 4 children and, we needed space and just to have the place that we found, which was a very intimate house. I mean, it was not a big house, but we had a lot of property around it. And I don't think we even would have looked at the house or tried to find that place if we hadn't had, as many kids, or we haven't had the kids that we do. But we just knew that, they love to garden and they love to be outside, and that was really important, and that really actually enriched our lives. So, I mean, that is something that I would say directly, like, came from having the kids that we did have, and it's something that we still love. That's the place where we hope to live out our days.
Is it kind of
So-
like savory gift,
Savory?
like tasty gift?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, it does.
It's like some treat.
Yeah, it was a treat. It's a treat.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm thankful for every day. Yeah.
You mentioned this home when I asked you what choices to come up. And you mentioned that it's a place that you were thinking to, stay and live your life in the future.
Mhm.
Is it some kind of anchor for you? Do you mean that it's kind of like an anchor?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think when I think about what we would like to have for the rest of our lives, we want a home, and we want a safe and a quiet place to come home to. We want to be able to go out from there and be able to travel and spend time in very different parts of the world, but always have this place to come back to. Excuse me, so far it's already been that for us as a family, and I see it continuing to be that for our kids if they ever want to come back from college, or if the economy stays like it has for the past 10 years. They'll probably need to come hang out with us for a little while, and it would be that kind of a place, but I see the difference there being that it's not permanent for anyone. I mean, it's our anchor, right? It's our safe space.
You and Jason.
Yeah.
And then the kids.
Yeah, if they want to come back, but
Right. Isn't that kind of how you see family? Like a family is kind of an anchor that you can go far away and travel and then have your freedom. And then, but if you want to rest, need some shelter, then you fly back, kind of like a bird.
yeah. I think of the home as being that more than I think of the family, but that's partly just because my family of origin, we grew up all over the world, and my siblings and my cousins and my extended family, we were all over the place. And so there was not like that one place that we came to, which is why I think that the house is a place. Like I think of the place as being a really important space for me. So yeah, I mean, we always got together as a family and like had reunions and stuff, and I guess that was like kind of home too, but it was not, you know, I think it was a different concept. It's different than what you're describing.
Well, what I have describing.
You just, like you said, that family is like a place where you always come back to, like you can go off and fly, but you'll always come home to roost. And I just,
Right,
I feel
right.
like my experience of family has been different than that.
Yeah, but like only the family members come back, not like people you don't know, like strangers on the street. They don't come back to your home. They're not associated with your house. Yeah, your home really, right? Your
Yeah.
sense of home.
Right.
Well, I was just checking because for some people they welcome stranger, some in some culture. I'm just checking. That's what we're talking about. And so how do you see who is included in the family? Like what do you see? Like you mentioned the kids, and then but I am thinking like how do you see your kids taking care of each other, like their sibling, and you have 4 kids. How do you see them as like having the family?
I mean, I think that's gonna depend on what their circumstances are, right? I mean, that's not something that I can say. I think they all love each other, but they fight a fair amount because they're
Growing up.
right? Growing up, they had plenty of little spats, but they really.
Do they take care of it? Do they take care of each other? Like,
Well, they talk on the phone, and I think Jimmy has helped Ryan. Like I know that he helped them when they were on the same sports team, and like he's called them when they first went away to college. Like they would keep in touch, and like yeah, I mean they've got a pretty good relationship.
Is that something that you and Jason like try to make sure that kids do that, or they?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to let every child be who they are, and for us to impose on them, what they should be doing and how they should be is kind of restrictive. I mean, I just feel like that's heavy-handed parenting, and I don't want to.
So you do by modeling. You do by like
Do what by
modeling, like modeling, like model good behavior instead of just telling the kids like, oh, don't smoke, and then you smoke yourself. But you do it by not smoking, by living a healthy
I mean, we
life.
had a lot of conversations about choices when the kids were growing up. Like, why would you choose one thing and why shouldn't you choose it? I mean, like, if you're talking about like a behavior, right, something like drinking or smoking, right, we would have very frank discussions with the kids. But ultimately, I mean, after they were sort of 14, 15, we really gave them a lot of independence because we think it's important for them to choose the way they want to live, and we need to respect that.
So they choose to take care of each other,
Yeah.
and that's kind of related to your parenting, like because that's the style you foster, and then they make this choice, and it turned out to be a good choice, of course. How do you see? How does the kids see their uncle, like, and also maybe the possibility that I'm not sure, but like maybe Jason have also discussed with them. Oh, uncle may be living with us. There may be such a possibility, and it's not a surprise for them that uncle has a special.
Right. I mean,
Special needs, right?
they know Uncle Justin really well, and obviously they've known him for their entire lives, and they know that. I mean, they've always known about his special needs since they were able to understand, what that looked like and what that meant. But we have not had this discussion about Justin coming to live with us with them because it was never a real possibility, and it was never a real consideration. And it's just since Jason's parents have gotten so sick and they're going to be moving out of their place and they can't, be there for Justin that we're confronting this.
I see. How do you think that your kid may feel towards their uncle if he moved to a home like with people?
A group
also-
home?
Mhm, a group home.
You know, I haven't asked them, and I probably need to ask them because I don't feel like I should speak for them.
Or maybe just share the news with them if just have an update, family update. I mean, how do you think that they may see that as a choice for the family, like not kind of a bigger family, not just a nuclear family, that you, Jason, and the kids, but it's like bigger family.
Right, right, with their cousins too, and their. I don't know. Again, I hesitate to put words in their mouths because I don't think that it's appropriate for me to guess at what they feel. I think that they really, I mean, we haven't had that discussion, and what I'm hearing is that maybe we should have that discussion. But, I mean, to guess at it right now, I think each kid has a different personality, and so they're all going to react very differently, or they all could react very differently.
I think.
Do you want time? Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 15 till.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. That was
Oh.
excellent.
Interesting.
I like one of the last few sentences you said. I think we should have that discussion, but
Do you guys want to first talk about what was going through your heads and where you were thinking about going with this, and any insights that you had,
Sure.
Cecily?
I was thinking to go ahead, because she told me she has kids, and usually parents want the siblings to take care of each other. So I was kind of making use of that, and but having kind of sort of a hidden gentle reminder, or whatever you call it, like if that your own behavior of how this uncle is being taken care of or handled or treated is going to have a effect back on your kids. But I don't know whether it's successful or
It was
not.
powerful.
It's powerful.
It was powerful, and I had trouble sticking to the own narrative that I created because partly because I am expecting that we will have Justin live with us at some point, and I'm counting on that. I was trying to give this as a family situation that would cause a lot of friction. My master narrative of family is that we take care of each other, and it does not matter, what we want, that we do that. So I was trying to play up these ideas about freedom and these ideas about like restrictions and that as being really important. So it was interesting for me to try to populate that narrative.
Yeah, it is interesting to see
Yeah.
because actually Cecily, because we actually entered the program together, so I actually know her quite well
Yeah.
in terms of this, and she is pretty much the opposite kind of person advocating.
Do you feel like that was a gentle way that Grace was going about it and like hinting at
Yes.
the... Okay.
Because she never asked me directly what she asked what my kids would think, right? And she asked if we had done modeling as parents, but she never said, so what do you think this kind of decision, how will that affect your kids' view of you and of each other? Like she never,
If she had said that.
if she
how
had that, it would have
react?
felt like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or like a
I
punch in
know.
the gut. Like that would have been way too intrusive.
It will be too obvious that I am trying to put the kids in hostage to get her to just say that.
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, from an outside perspective, I thought it was pretty, like, it was a little forceful, and I was like, oh, great.
It is
But
actually
that's why I wanted
pretty
to try.
forceful. It is
Yeah.
actually pretty forceful.
Because I was like, well, that's a very obvious correlation you're trying
Yeah.
to make there,
Yeah.
but if it works.
But it helped that she didn't say it.
Yeah.
Right? She didn't.
Yeah, she wasn't
didn't
explicit.
make that explicit.
Yeah.
It actually sounds forceful. Is because my skill is not very mature.
Oh, no, you're fine.
It's totally that.
What did you guys notice? What do you want to say?
Oh, going on what you said there, I like the fact that it was an indirect approach that allowed you to keep face.
Yeah,
So it wasn't threatening your position in any way.
Right.
So you
Threatening
could
her
then
narrative.
respond any way you wanted to go.
right. It allowed me an out, if you will. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, this is, now the purpose of this is of this exercise. What is it?
So
So
the,
she tell me a conflict story, like she wants freedom, she doesn't want.
I don't want,
the
Jason
product.
wants Justin to live with us.
Right.
Yeah, but you
And I don't
want
want Justin to live with us,
Okay.
right? That's the basic story
That's the
here.
basic story. Yeah, I got that, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
find out is, what can you do with that as an interviewer?
Yeah. So what
Just to get
she
to
was
talk about it,
doing,
or like a
Yeah.
psychoanalysis?
Yeah, I had to get out of the psychoanalysis role back into the
Yeah.
mediator. But
Yeah, that's right.
There's a fine line between
Maybe
the
just
two.
like get a new
Yeah.
thing so we can. Oh,
I saw, I mean, this is the simple story, right? Jason says, yes, we'll take Justin.
Uh-huh.
I say, no, we won't.
Okay.
I mean, that's as simple as
That's
it,
the
as like
skeleton.
as sort of skeleton as you can get. And what Grace did or was doing was
Weaving.
helping to make this line look, you know, much more
Kind of-
like this.
Yeah.
Because what this does is I am then not facing Jason, right?
Uh-huh.
And saying you're wrong and I'm right,
Yeah.
and you know, or vice versa, right? What we're able to do is say, oh, in fact, we could go over here, and there's this whole other story that has
Yeah.
nothing to do with this, which maybe has to do with what it means to be a brother,
Oh, okay.
right? You know, I think in one way that, well, maybe I should ask, what were the sort of master narratives that you heard that sort of ran through this story that I was telling?
I have fulfilled my obligation of 20 years. I have done what I did. I was
Okay.
able to write my own rules, and now I don't want to start over again with
Yeah,
a
that would
special
be-
needs child that I cannot model.
Right, so
Child.
there's
Child.
parenting, there's
Yeah.
Yep,
responsibility.
but not a responsibility that you quite have as much control over as you did the first 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
There's concepts like control,
freedom,
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom gained,
restrictions.
freedom lost, freedom.
Freedom lost, yeah. You lost the freedom. Yeah, well, you be losing it.
I like the fact that also you put yourself in that position in this narrative that you are, I don't want to, which is sort of cruel, opposed to your true nature of, you see?
Well, it's interesting that you would say that it's cruel.
I'm just
I
using the
could
words
see,
I think you had.
yeah, that I had. Yeah, it's true. That, yeah, I think I do see that as cruel, to not accept someone into your home. And it's funny that you asked if we took strangers into our home, because we've talked about having a place where we can
Or
bring
even
homeless
more
people in.
family.
Oh no way!
I mean, it's like, so there's so many things that are different about this,
Even
right?
more important, family.
Right, right. I mean, if we're willing to accept homeless people into our house, of course we have family. Like, are you kidding? But I mean, the stories of marriage, what it means to be married, right, was something. What it means to support your spouse, right, sibling. What it means to be a sibling, what it means to be brothers, I don't know, but I can guess at what Jason, you know, what it's like for Jason and Justin brothers, because I have a sister, right? I mean, what else? What are the other things that came through this?
3 times came up with the phrase in one way or another, I know that we need to talk, but. That came
Yeah,
up
that but
3
came up.
times.
With
Okay.
her children that
No,
came up
the-
and need to talk to.
Just period.
Just period.
We need to talk. So it's like, okay, you know that there's issues that need to be brought up, but.
Yeah.
What were as your character? What were some of the insight points where you were like, oh, hadn't thought about that as a? I mean, if you can say as a character.
I think when she questioned my idea of place and family and that overlap of family, well, me as Cecily, I had a hard time imagining how they aren't tied together, because a home isn't a home unless unless you have the people in it, right? I mean, it's like place is important, but it's the people that make it so. And so I think that was a moment where in my character I would have felt, well, I'm guessing I would have felt compelled to question that about myself.
Yeah. Okay. So
And I
people
think
would-
again, thinking about that the different generations of siblings, right? About she was asking about my kids and how they were together, and then not directly imposing, but also I felt it was superimposed on Jason, Justin, and Kara
Yeah.
and like their relationships, and you know, their parenting, what they experienced, and then what my kids experienced, and then sort of thinking about those as parallel.
Yeah, that was a very smart move,
Opportunities.
Grace. I thought that was really, really well done. That was cool. But so maybe like home would be another one up here when you're talking about the anchor. And then these generations of, I don't know, it was like caring. Generations of how do we learn the things we learn about taking care of each other, of being a family. How do you learn about that?
Generational learning, I'll call it.
Yeah, something along those lines. Like that, and I can see how, like, if you're stuck in this yes or no, you would never even think about that, right? And so she was poking at this, and it sort of brought up this whole, I could see, like, your mind was working.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it.
So in this exercise, when people who are narrative practitioners get really good, and I think, Grace, you are very, very good, they're able to listen to the conversation, right, about the things that I was saying, and hold these concepts of control, of freedom, right? Do what you were doing as a listener, in picking out the talk butt, the marriage question, right? And then, generally speaking, we all have, I mean, there is a sort of master narrative about what it means to be married, if we are clearly still married and in love after having kids, right? There's a concept, even if it comes from a sitcom, right? There's sort of a concept about marriage that we can all relate to, in some sense, or we have a concept of that, and that what you could do, what you can do as a practitioner, as an intervener, is question around that and sort of open that up.
There is a kind of a hidden master narrative definitely behind your main story. Is the idea that marriage is more like for two person, maybe plus the kids, but and then the kids go away, we are two people again. Then that is to become the master narrative unspoken behind your main storyline, for sure.
Yeah,
The narrative of the picket fence.
right. The sort of the empty nesters
Yeah.
who discover,
The house is too big. now the
right,
house
that
is too
that it's big, but that also that they haven't spoken to each other really in 25 years. That was what I was trying to sort of access, right? Because they've talked about their kids.
25 years.
You've had kids, right, in your house for so long that you've been more of a parent
Yeah.
than a wife,
Your wife, yeah.
right? So the relationship that you have with your husband is through your children.
Yes.
And what I was trying to say was, I want to be a wife.
Well, a couple.
I want to be a couple, right? I want to be a unit as opposed to,
A big
a mom and a dad.
A mom and dad.
Yeah.
I think the freedom piece is really hard here. My mom is actually currently taking care of her mother.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do if you've ever
Yeah.
done that and feel that sort of trappedness. And so even if, I mean, I've had conversations with her, I try to tease out some of these issues of, well, you know, you're modeling a bit, you know, I'm going to be the one taking care of you someday, like that sort of thing. Not that explicit, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to deal with, right? It's a hard when you feel that sort of when you feel trapped. And I would be interested. I think like if this conversation had gone on, it would have taken. I mean, there could have been a lot more there.
A lot more there,
to get to some sort of
could have been a lot of sessions, 60
Yeah.
minutes a pop.
Yeah, absolutely,
60
absolutely. To get to a place where, you know, these little insights suddenly feel like the new story, because I think it would take a lot more.
I think if we are going further, I almost have to necessarily have to try to destabilize your assumption or your that your brother-in-law are like this. Are like this.
Oh,
I
that
think you
Justin
make
is like a
little
kid?
bit- Yeah, you never said that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a implicit parallel.
That you would have to take
Almost,
care of
because,
him.
Right.
Because
Another
you,
child.
yeah, because
Yeah.
you.
That's
Well,
interesting.
first he has specialties and you know societal assumption usually treat
Right.
them as kids, and then you were saying, oh, the kid's gone, but and then this person comes.
Yeah.
It's like as if he takes their place,
Yeah.
and I have to make them be different.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna be a surprise.
Yeah.
Because you never live with them.
Right, because I've never lived with him before.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What I also like seeing about this is, okay, here you have actual negotiation dealing with two belligerent parties. And I made that joke about this could be many 60-minute sessions. Yes, something like this you really wouldn't get within the shortened period of time that we had. Even getting two sides to know each other's narratives would take iterative processes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Something that maybe we should have enunciated earlier is that a lot of the work that John Winslade and Michael White did was with people who were they were in the mediation process because they already wanted something different. And that makes a difference, right? You have two people or two or three or four parties or whatever that are already at the table.
The moment was right.
Yeah. Right? So the people had already come to them, right. People had come to them wanting something different. And to be able to do this kind of a work,
Yeah.
not that that's integral, but it's hard to do it without that, right?
So usually the first question he asks the party is like, why are you here? What do you hope to come out of? So that the alternative story, the
Yeah.
material is out of in the air, on
Yeah.
the table,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're
And
already
then
saying-
Bottom line
he
of-
uses it to define.
What they hope to get. But a lot of this, and we've done this when we've facilitated different sessions, it's very different from like a problem-solving workshop, right? Because you need to develop these stories. You need to work with people to hear that backstory.
Yeah.
And other types of mediation facilitation, they don't do this because, you know, it's time.
We're working on the problems.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you, ladies.
Well, thank you. I mean, it
love
was
feedback.
interesting
Yeah.
to plan because we assumed that there would be people who've gone to, like, it was going to be our APT colleagues or some, you know, people who've done this before,
Happy
and
to
so.
be here to assist.
Well, thank you
We hope
very
you
much
learned
for
something
coming.
about narrative and